Now it's just numbers.
Now it's just stubbornness. Like we're here, we're in for the long haul. So, hopefully we're streaming. I'm not okay. There it comes. I was gonna say normally the background comes up pretty quick, but it didn't there for a second, and now it looks
For
like
me,
it's.
there's a 10 to 15 second delay every time I've ever watched.
So the screen for me looks black. So anyways, out there in cyberspace, can you let us know if we're coming through? Because I don't have a way of checking this. Where's my phone? Momentary pause. I don't know what's going on. Oh, no, it's working. It's just doing some funky stuff in the background here. It just came up all of a sudden. I don't know why it's kind of being a weirdo tonight. But anyway, episode 138, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about the weekend. So as you folks out there may know in our podcasting universe, that this past weekend, Ben and I, we went off. It was our group get-together, is what it was. Numbers, going to be admittedly not ideal, but we had a lot of factors playing against us there. You know what I mean? So... 1, COVID's still going. 2, the weather really was not... Actually, you know what? Weather was good, except for Sunday morning.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a story there about Saturday night, Sunday morning that I think needs to be repeated, whether you wanted to or not.
Oh, no. All stories are being told. This is all... The gloves are off. Let's get to it. I figured that's... You know what? It was a fun weekend. It came down to me, you, your family, and Steve joined us out there.
Yeah.
And we had a blast, honestly. We had an absolute blast.
So Steve beat us all by hours. Like, he was out there mid-afternoon, I think.
Oh, man, he said he blew in, like, what did he say, 2 o'clock or something like that? Like, it was pretty early. Ben and I, of course, we had to finish work and all that good stuff. But what time did we end up there, Ben? We still got there by, like, 7:30?
I think it was 7 o'clock that I rolled in, and you beat me by like, from what you told me, minutes, if not seconds.
I hadn't got out of the car yet. I had enough time to stop, park, and text you that I'm here. And I texted you that, and I looked up, and your headlights were coming down the road. So it was perfect timing that way.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, you know, he was already set up and stuff. Friday night, actually, weather was pretty good. Here, I got some kind of ding thing here.
Oh, okay. There we go. I think somehow, some way, I can make this work. Not 100% sure how. Oh, yeah, because I got that funky, crazy one on the side. So, you know what? I'm okay with this. For the little bit of time that we're going to be in here, I'll be the voice of reason in the background.
You're the voice of reason? Oh,
I mean, yeah. What do you mean I'm not?
What do you think, Steve?
Voice of reason?
Yeah.
100%.
Wow.
I think so.
See, I have the connections, Ben.
I obviously deserved that test result I got earlier today.
Apparently. We were talking about doing an empathy test just before you came on there, or before we came on. But we just got through our introductions. We just said we were out for the weekend, and we were just talking about how you beat us to the punch by a significant amount of time. Like, what time did you actually arrive there, Steve?
I did. I got there around 2:30 maybe.
Yeah, see, I wasn't far off. I said I thought it was around 2.
And rolled in pretty much by myself. Had a chance to set up my gear, get my tent. I had first pick of spots, which is always nice, and get a chance to set up, get all my gear sorted out. And the funny part was I crawled into my tent just to see if it was comfortable enough, and ended up falling asleep for an hour and a half, and had myself a little afternoon nap.
Little siesta. But I mean, that's what it's all about. It's lovely to be able to get out there, have a little nap whenever you want. That's the beauty of going into the woods. You're not really on a schedule. You're just out there to enjoy it.
Honestly, Saturday I wanted a siesta for a period.
I wanted a siesta right from the time I woke up until about 5 o'clock. So So if anybody's wondering why everybody's kind of chuckling at me, I'll spill the beans. Why not? So Friday night is when we all blew in. We went in. The original plan was we were going to go Saturday. We all arrived kind of Friday night because why not? We had the time. We made a campfire. We got around the campfire, and we started having a few adult beverages. Now, at some point, my few adult beverages might have turned into a little bit of self-indulgence. And I didn't think it was that bad. I really did not think it was that bad. But come the next morning, I realized it was that bad. I was seedy as hell. Would you guys not say? Like, I was kind of...
Well, you wouldn't eat.
No,
For the first few hours, you wouldn't even try food. Like, you looked at it and you said, no, that's not a thing.
No. I sipped water all day. I didn't get sick, which is a benefit. But I sipped water probably right up until about 1 o'clock. I don't think I had a cup of coffee until about 2 o'clock, something like that. It was just water, just sips of water. I tried eating a bite of one of the egg poppers that I made, and we'll talk about here in a minute. And it was like one bite, and I'm like, nope, no. This is not a good idea. This isn't happening. I'll just sip water. I'll nurse myself around. But we still had a good time, all in all. Like, that was the one little hiccup. I got a little out of control, but it wasn't bad. I wasn't rowdy, I don't think.
Wow.
Rowdy? No, not rowdy. I mean, I've camped with Ben once before. This is the first time that Robert and I had a chance to camp together. So, we know each other, but not super well. But I had a fun evening just kind of sitting back and watching you guys relax.
That we call. I mean, no one got rowdy. No one got in trouble. No one did anything they shouldn't have done. We told some good stories. We had a few drinks. There was quite a few laughs. My daughter was there. My oldest daughter was there the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think we had a good time. We got to know each other a bit better and tell some stories and maybe a few lies, possibly. I'm not sure.
It's all a little hazy, I'm not going to lie.
Robert has no idea what happened, really. And we're not telling him about, streaking down the highway or anything.
I did that when I was sober. I remember that perfectly. Thank you very much. But
joking. Nothing happened. We got up next morning, though. The weather Saturday was actually pretty good. Overcast a little bit, but I don't,
Well, the weather was great until the evening. The evening got a little bit wet, but with a little bit of ingenuity, we dealt with that.
The hillbilly setup.
What we'll say around maybe 6, 7 o'clock, we started to get some pretty steady drizzle.
Well, with Murphy's Law, the second we got the fire going is when it started raining hard.
Yeah.
Because there was a little bit of a moment there where it looked like the fire may be getting beaten down ever so slightly with the rain. And we had a pretty good wave of rain come through, but then it kind of cleared off again.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad. And as Steve said, we set up a tarp so that we'd be sheltered from the rain. It was just nothing fancy. It was literally just kind of a wedge-style tarp. One that Ben had there. We ran a string from a tree. We ran it over to a stick. And did you happen to get a picture of that stick, Steve, that Ben, Dr. Fix-It over there, was able to mend together for us?
So if anyone has ever broken a canoe paddle or maybe a hiking stick or something like that, and you want to know how to lash it, Ben is the guy to talk to, because he, rather than cut a new stick, which could have been done.
No, that was the only stick.
Yeah, that was the only stick available. He opted to lash this stick, and the when that stick survived was actually, it was pretty impressive, to be honest. I mean, it was good.
So the tarp we had suspended, that was a mech guide Silnot nylon tarp. It's a pretty good tarp. I think I spent over $150, $160 on this thing. It's not a cheap tarp. And it was windy and stuff, and it kept us pretty dry. But in the morning when we picked it up and I brought it home and checked it over, it was damaged.
Yeah.
Like, the tarp didn't survive as well as the stick.
Yeah, and it was high winds. Like, we knew it was high. When we were sitting under it, we knew the wind was blowing pretty good. But you never know sitting under it. Like, I mean, aside from the noise and all of that, it was pretty cozy under there.
Oh yeah.
I understand that it's a quite high quality tarp and you pay a lot of money for it and you have certain expectations.
Yeah.
And from what I saw, this tarp actually has a spot designed for a paddle
Yep.
to go in.
Yeah, and that's where the damage is.
But when you think about it, I mean, the stress that would have been put on that one spot, I mean,
It was a lot.
honest, it's a lot. So,
And what really happened, just so we're all clear, is there's a reinforced patch where the tie down point is, and that reinforced patch actually just separated from the tarp, and that's why it started to rip where it did. The rips are actually very minor. There's not much damage there. The problem is it's so close to the reinforced tab, or the tie down tab, that it's hard to put like tenacious tape on or anything. So I tried re-adhering the patch on here, but the glue I have, the silicone cone glue that should join it back together, it's old, so it's not got the strength it used to have. So I just need to buy some new stuff and reattach that patch, and really it's a full repair. It's going to be fine.
Well, that's good. That's what I was going to ask. Are you going to have the ability to fix that tarp?
Oh, it's repairable, and it'll be pretty well as good as new or better when I'm finished with it. I'm not too worried. Like, it's not a loss of a tarp. It's just unfortunate and probably is out of commission for the next month or two until I get the supplies to do a proper repair. But it's definitely repairable, and I can make it better. We can fix it. We can make it better. It'll be like the Bionic Man.
So I do want to tell a quick story, and we kind of joked at this at the start. I do know Steve has to go, so I want to tell this story before he leaves. So during all the wind and rain and stuff, and us standing around the fire, sitting around the fire, whatever you want to say, and telling our jokes and having a few laughs, we made the joke at one point that it was raining so hard the lake could flood. So keeping this in mind, this is where we're going with the story. So after all this, it was just said in passing. We joked, oh yeah, it's raining so hard the lake could flood, yada, yada, yada. And the subconscious mind works in funny ways. So we had our laughs, all that stuff. It really wasn't that late when we went to bed.
No.
I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't super late. Maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock, because we were still pretty worn out from the night before. That night we had stayed up till like 2 in the morning and then woken up early. We got up like 5 or something. So anyway, we all crawl in bed.
And you guys were behind me, so let's not lie.
Not by much, though. We literally just stood there for like, maybe 20 minutes, Steve? Chatted a little bit and made sure the fire was all pushed into the pit more than anything. Even though it was raining and stuff, we didn't figure it would go anywhere, but better safe than sorry. We didn't want it to fly off into the tarp or any of that. So anyway, everybody crawls into bed, and so Ben and his daughter are a little up above me. They're sleeping in their tarp setups with their hammocks, and everything is great. I'm not too far off the parking area. I have a tarp set up, a hammock set up, and I borrowed an underquilt from Ben. Now, I had never used this underquilt before, and the last one I borrowed from Ben, and if anybody doesn't know, I don't actually own an underquilt of my own. I have to get one. It's one of those things that's on my list. But anyway, I borrowed this from Ben, and we hadn't put this one on my hammock setup before. So we were kind of looking at it and eyeballing it. We came up with the bright idea that, we'll just, snap it onto the tree straps, because it went perfect. It snapped onto them nice and easy. It got the perfect distance from the hammock. Like, when I crawled into it, it was nice and warm. You couldn't feel the wind coming under you. Thought I was in for a great sleep.
Yeah.
So around 12 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock, the rain started hard again. Enough to wake me up to notice the rain. And you said yourself, Steve, that you woke up because the rain kicked back up pretty hard. So with this in mind, around that time, I, acknowledged the rain. Okay, things are good. Rolled back. Well, didn't really roll over in the hammock. But anyway, went back to sleep. Fast forward maybe an hour. I'm starting to move in the hammock, and all of a sudden I feel sloshing under me. Like, not damp. I'm not damp. I feel like I'm laying in water. For whatever reason, and I told these two folks the same thing when I woke up in the morning, the first thought that went through my head is, holy crap, it rained so hard, the lake flooded. I got to get out of here, and I got to tell these guys we got to go. So anyway, the kicking and flailing and all this starts, and I fall out of the hammock, land on the ground. Ground under me's dry. You know what I mean? Well, relatively dry. I'm not, swimming is the fact here. And I'm like, what the hell happened here? So I find my flashlight, break it out. When we had hooked the underquilt onto the tree straps, which seemed good at the time, We didn't realize that the tree straps are prior to the whoopee slings. And on the whoopee slings, if once it goes to the strap to the whoopee sling, there's a spot there where water would normally drip down, not get into my hammock setup. Well, where we bypassed that, it made 2 perfect channels on these straps for water to literally run straight into the underquilt. And it pooled there. Like, it was coming in fast enough that it didn't soak through. It actually pooled a little bit of water. And we're not talking like 6 inches. We're just talking a little bit. It was enough to splash and alarm me. So anyway, long story short, all of that was good and dandy. The place wasn't flooding. I didn't have to bail anyone out. So I said, all right, whatever. Kind of closed everything up. I waddled my way down to the car and I climbed in the back and kind of passed out there. Now, the first night, that's where I actually slept, was in the back of the car. I had an air mattress, wanted to try it out. I bought this small air mattress for Lily, my daughter, for when we go camping, she has a comfortable place to sleep. So I tried throwing it in there. First night was great, but the second night I had moved it, didn't have time to set this thing up again. I literally just kind of opened the door, flung myself in and passed out. So I was kind of contorted in the morning, but the whole point of the story is I thought the lake flooded, which was basically a physical impossibility for how big it was, because there's a lower lying area on the other side of the lake, and it would have drained off there long before it reached me. Didn't find this out until after I looked at the maps. But then the second thing was, what we laughed about afterwards, was if it had hit me, poor old Steve would have been long gone. Like, he was tent camping, we were up in hammocks, so I was at least suspended off the ground a little bit. Steve, on the ground, he would have been, sailing off into bluer pastures there. Maybe he collected our canoes, because the running gag was, if anybody died on the trip, we were selling their equipment, or keeping what we wanted, selling the rest. And that was literally the running gag. And we were... Sorry, go for it, Steve.
I was nervous.
I mean...
more than once.
Ben's daughter, we were convinced that she was going to do Steve in for the longest part off the trip there. Like, it wasn't even... It was a joke, but at certain points you just kind of had to stop and be like, she might be serious about this. Like, maybe we better take a little bit more of an alarm to this, because she's so dry when she says stuff.
Yeah, I'm worried for future boyfriends of hers. I really am. And I think you understand why. Like,
it was funny. Like, the first couple times it was kind of taken back, and then it moved on to, it was kind of a joke, and then it kind of moved on to, I don't think we should, maybe Steve should sleep with the paddle next to him, kind of deal. Like,
one eye open.
But no, it was a lot of fun. We had a fun. That was kind of the biggest misadventure off the whole adventure. And even that wasn't bad. That was nothing but a funny story, ultimately, at the end of it.
No, I think overall we had a good time. Me and Steve got out in canoes. We went and explored an island, paddled all the way around it, got to test this canoe out in the lake. That was pretty fun.
Yep.
Got some fire, couple of fires, lots of good chats. Sunday before we left, we tried a handful of tarp setups just for fun. And some of those I think would be very useful in the right situation.
Yeah, we looked at some wedge setups, and I was really impressed with them. What was your thoughts on them, Steve?
I have a couple tarps, and we've discussed my tarps before because they have a lot of different tie-out points.
Yeah.
And I would be very, very interested to try my tarps out with some of those setups. Because there are so many spots where you can connect them. I think that you can do some really great configurations with them. I'll tell you, I think that my one big takeaway from the weekend, because I did get there so early, I had some time to think about where I wanted to set up and what I wanted to do. And given the fact that we had some potential weather for the weekend, I'm sure you guys noticed I set up a tarp over my tent.
Yeah, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, honestly.
Yeah, and I now my tent does have a bit of what's it called in the front?
Vestibule?
A vestibule in the front, thank you. But it's not a large vestibule. And if you're expecting rainy weather, it's really nice to have some dry area where you can keep some gear, whether it's your shoes or whatever. So I kind of set this tarp up not only as kind of an insurance policy for potentially a lot of rain, but just to give myself almost like a front living room, a little spot to have a dry spot. And that seemed to work really, really well. So I was happy about it. Man, rainy weather, tarps, it's the way to go.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, sorry, go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, I just find tarps to be a very fun thing to play with. Yeah. And you're right, Steve, that tarp setup you have there, it has probably as many options as I've ever seen on a tarp, with a great, was it 4 tie points on the ridge line, down the center for a ridge line, and I think 4 per side, if I'm not mistaken, or more.
I might be wrong. I think there's a total of 19 tile points on it, and it's a 10 by 10.
Yeah. Is it square?
It is. Yeah. Or it's supposed to be. I haven't actually double checked that, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great tarp, and that's a great dimension. 10 by 10 is a pretty good size. It's a hard, is there times a bigger tarp would be great? Yes. Is there times a smaller tarp would be adequate? Yes. But it's a pretty good all-around size. It's a pretty good size. And I've said it to you probably every time I've walked by that tarp. I do like that tarp. It's a good solid tarp. You got a good setup there. The next time we get it, we'll definitely play with that again and see what other setups and options we can get with it.
No, I'm totally looking forward to that too. Something else we chatted about, potentially making some oilskin tarps. You and I talked about it a little bit there, Ben, and I know you were present for the conversation, Steve. So that's something else we may try in the future. And I would love, and you already said you're into this, Ben, so you're already hooked, to do some ground camping. To try the oilskin tarps, maybe even go back to a similar spot where we can drive in. That way we have a safety line, stuff like that. Try some of those tarp setups that we were playing with, like those really low-cut, sharp wedges. And try and do like an actual ground camping setup where we go in low, get a fire in the central area. That way it heats both. And you're more than welcome to come too, Steve. Don't feel left out. And see how it would work. I'd really like to put it into practicality. You know what I mean?
I think too, if you had 2 similar tarps, it didn't even have to be that similar, but two tarps, you could actually run 2 off the same pole, and it doesn't have to be a tree. It could actually be a pole secured properly, and you would have even better coverage. You'd have like 2 little rooms, and then an opening off to the side where you could have the fire to heat both of them.
And I think just judging by the way we set that up, like we had a higher setup that we could walk in, and then we tried pulling it down a little bit, and that lower lying one, although not as comfortable to stand up and open, you know what I mean? You're kind of hunched over. But I don't think a speck of wind would be able to get into that, and you would have to have some really high wind and rain to even push any kind of moisture into that. Like, it was a really good wedge shape.
Oh, man. You could run that year-round. Like, that's a winter setup, a summer setup, a fall setup, just with a few minor changes for weather conditions. And you do have to direct it the right way. You need to make sure the wind is coming from your back.
Having said that, it would only take you a few minutes to redirect it. If the terrain allowed and you needed to shift it, one way or the other 6 feet, it would only take you a few minutes to shift it. So,
yeah.
No, and you kind of hinted at where I'm going with this. If I get the oilskin done soon enough, I'm really curious to see how we do in the winter. Get like a long fire going in the center, 2 wedges on either side or side by side, whatever the case may be. And because hot tents are good. I have nothing against hot tents. Don't misunderstand. I'm not knocking on them. But when you bring a little stove inside the tent, you're very limited to the amount of fuel you can put in said stove. Now, with an outside fire, you can't control the burn as good, so you can close the draft in a stove and stuff like that and make that small amount of fuel go longer. But with an outside fire, you can have a larger fire to heat more area. So if you get some larger timber and stuff on that, you could potentially have heat through most of the night, especially if there was 2 of you. One person might have to wake up in 3 hours, and then somebody again 3 hours after that, just restock your fire, and boom, you're going to be warm all night.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, like with the wood stove, you do have to take the wood stove with you. You know what I mean? Like, it's another item in the pile in your gear to take. So if you can eliminate that, you're going in a bit lighter. It's a bit more work when you get there because you're going to have to gather more firewood. But like you just said, you can burn some bigger pieces. Like you can burn pieces the size of a stove. And that will burn for 3-4 hours. Where when you fill these stoves, honestly, if you get an hour and a half between having to fill it up, you're lucky on any of the trips I've made. Now, maybe someone will tell me they do otherwise. But even the guys I know who are really into this, a lot of them say they just take a really good sleeping bag. When they go to sleep, they let the fire go out and they just relight it in the morning because they don't want to wake up 10, 15 times a night.
And that's the thing with those smaller tent stoves is you are filling them constantly. And I say smaller, but I mean like the ammo can stove that you have. That's a pretty good sized stove for a tent stove. And like you said, you're still only getting maybe an hour and a half out of it. You can get the larger ones from Princess Auto and stuff like that, but realistically, that's a really big stove to take into a small tenting area. You're eating up a ton of real estate in a small area. And if you start getting into bigger tents, now you have more room that you have to heat. Plus, you have to carry that extra size. Like, you start to get into that diminishing returns. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, we have a solution to that, and that will eventually make it into a video.
Yeah.
Question, Robert, when you get a second.
Sure.
The material you're talking about as far as, an oil, sorry, don't remember what you called it. Is it oil skin?
Yep, oil skin. So it's called a couple different things. Iron skin, oil skin.
So you're talking about treating cotton, is that correct, to make it waterproof?
Cotton or canvas, correct.
So how is the fire retardancy of this once it's done?
So here's the thing. There's a couple ways you can do this, depending on what you want to do with it. So the classic way of doing this is mineral spirits and boiled linseed oil. 50-50 mix, you soak your either cotton or canvas, and the higher thread count with the tighter the weave you can get, the better off you're going to be. So you soak this, you just have to saturate it, you wring out the extra, you have to let this hang in an open area. Linseed oil is organic material, so if you keep it crumpled up or you try to fold it and put it away, possibility spontaneous combustion, and linseed oil is one of the ones that's a little bit more notorious for doing that. So you keep this thing aired out. The thing is, it takes about 3 weeks to dry. Like here in Nova Scotia, our weather, our humidity, you're looking at like about 3 weeks, unless you hit it the dead center of like August when it's hot and really dry. You might get it in like a week. But anyway, you let this thing dry out. And if it's cotton or canvas with a heavy thread count, and the heavier the thread count, the better this will work too. The fire, I don't want to say fireproofing because it's not fireproof, but the fire retardedness of it it's pretty substantial. The last time I made one, I did it out of an Egyptian cotton sheet because that's what I'd seen to go by. Now the cost of those have gone up exponentially, but anyway, it was an Egyptian cotton. I think it had an 800 or maybe 1,000 thread count. It was pretty significant. I was able to hold a pocket lighter, like just, your little oval Bic, on it for, I think it was between 20 and 30 seconds, and it didn't burn through it. It singed it, it turned it brown, but it didn't actually ignite it or anything like that. Now, something you can do to further increase not only the waterproofness and the durability, but the fireproofness of it, is you can use powdered iron and add that into the mix, and it further seals the pores, and it also increases the durability off it because now you're adding powdered iron into it, so it's a tougher material once again because you're adding that in. But it also acts as kind of a giant heat sink. Not to the fact where you could actually use it as a heat sink, but it will spread the fire out a little bit more to the point where I've seen people put blowtorches on them for like 5 to 10 seconds and not burn through. And I mean a blowtorch, not like saddling gear, but propane torch that you'd use for soldering, and didn't burn through it.
But I'm thinking like in comparison to if you're setting up this wedge and you're thinking open fire beside it, like as compared to having a sil nylon tarp and you have sparks coming off.
Oh, one spark will put a hole in that.
Yeah, exactly. But with this other product, it's just going to bounce off. It's not going to bother it at all.
Not in the slightest. And that for sure, like my old oil skin, and it just wore out over time. I had like, no word of a lie, I was kind of cheating. I had thrown coals on it to carry them to another location. And I just kind of threw it on, wrapped it up, ran for a couple minutes, and all it did was leave some brown marks on there. Honestly, I was more concerned about the coals going out than damaging the tarp too much.
I would like to propose a video for next summer for the channel, which should be some kind of time-lapse video, like week or day one. Here's the material that we're using. We're soaking it. Day 2, day 3. Here's after a week. Here's after 2 weeks. Here's the dried product. This is what it looks like. Something like that. I mean,
yeah, but by all means, like it's
kind of a walkthrough, which you can't do. Like it's not a 1 hour walkthrough. It's a 2-week walkthrough. I don't even know. But
once again, I had planned on trying to do some of these potentially later in this year, and Ben just sent me a link to some Egyptian cotton sheets, which I'll probably be picking up now because they're a good price. Thanks, Ben. But yeah, no, I had thought about doing the video along with it. There's tons of them online, don't get me wrong, but I did kind of want to put our own spice on it because some of them still got some vagueness to them. They're just like, okay, here it is, it's all done. Great, but there's still a couple questions that I hopefully can answer with a video to it. Plus, I'm actually going to cut a section out and make some test samples, and we are going to literally put it to the fire test. I'm going to try and make a bag out of one and carry water in it to show its waterproofness. And we'll try a few other things, because once again, you can put the iron filings in it. I've heard of people heating up beeswax and mixing into it. I've heard of people using toilet rings and melting that into it. That tends to leave a tacky feeling, though. Am I not wrong there, Ben? You have a little bit more familiarity with that one.
It has its downsides. Yeah. It did take a lot longer to dry with the, believe it or not, with the toilet ring beeswax mixture. But honestly, the one thing I have done with it, and I have it done very well, it is basically bulletproof. Like, not actual bullet. It wouldn't stop an actual bullet, but it'll stop pretty well anything less than that. So, well, I took a okay jacket and made it into probably one of the toughest jackets I own. It's stronger than leather. And I have some similar products in here we can bring up and show for a similar video if you want. So,
yeah, maybe.
My only question is, can you tie dye?
You would have to dye it before you treat it. That's the only thing.
Yes, you could definitely tie dye it, and it would darken it for sure. I actually did a whole blanket, like a bed sheet, sewed it into a bag, and that's what holds my my camp tarp or cot tarp, cot tent.
Cot tent. There you go, Ben. I knew you'd get to it.
You get it when it is. And I did the whole thing in just regular wax. In fact, it was just tea lights. I melted down. I didn't mix it with anything, and I coated the whole thing. And it's got a really interesting look because every fold line produces this like white line in it. But it went from feeling a very weak, useless cloth. Like I was really worried it was just going to rip from the weight of material in it. So once I coated it in this beeswax, it feels like a heavy canvas now, and it feels significantly stronger. And I don't know if it makes it stronger or not, but it feels much stronger. And I've been playing with it quite a bit, and it seems pretty robust. And I don't feel it would light unless you got like a raw edge or something to really get the flame to start. From the flat surface of it, there's not enough for it to catch, so it'll tend to put any flame out.
So the other use for this, not necessarily what originated, but another very highly used method for this stuff is much like Ben's talking about there. He did a coat in this stuff, but it was used for pants. Now, what I used to call lineman pants, and I don't know what the actual name of it is, but they're heavier. I wouldn't go with denim, but they're like a cotton canvasy material. You can coat these, and that's where the iron skin idea comes in. You can walk through like thorns and burdocks, and nothing will stick to them. Burdocks will literally brush off them. The thorns won't dig into them. They just kind of brush through them. We used to do it a lot to our chainsaw pants if we were cutting in the winter. Made your legs stiff as heck. Don't get me wrong. Like the bendability goes out the door when you start including some of these waterproofing ideas onto it. But it makes the pants themselves rather tough, so that if you're cutting like in and around alders and thorn bushes and burdocks and all those nasty things, they just don't stick to your pants. They literally brush off. Because the whole way those work is they kind of get into the little fibrous holes in the material, and this seals those holes.
Yeah. You can take a regular pair of denim jeans, do this waterproofing method to them, and like you walk out and basically shy of someone hitting you with a fire hose, you're not getting wet.
And even then, I would wonder if the fire, and we can test this. I have the technology. I would be convinced that a fire hose, depending on the pressure you're putting it on here, it would probably stop most of the water.
Oh yeah, it would significantly reduce how much wet you're going to get. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never been hit with the full force of a fire hose, but I've been hit with close. Most people aren't going to stand up after they get hit with a fire hose. Like, it's going to knock you over.
Well, once again, it depends on a lot of factors. Depends on the pressure coming out and the size of the line.
Yeah.
But rule of thumb is don't get hit by a fire hose. It's not going to end up good for you.
That's my experience, right?
I was going to say, a 2-inch line, I've seen smaller firefighters trying to handle them on their own, and it would push them off their feet. And that's not getting hit with it. That's just the opposite force of the water spraying out, moving them around. But anyways, yeah, if you're interested in a video like that, totally, because I am going to make a couple of these. Ben just, like I said, sent me a link here. It looks like it's a 4-piece king bed sheet. So it's sheet fitted and some pillowcases, which is great because then it gives me the sheet I can make the actual tarp out of. The pillowcases I can use as samples. And I assume that must be a fitted sheet in there as well for the 4th set piece. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I assume.
So I might have to cut the corners off and re-sew. That's the only thing, because the stretchability isn't going to be there. That's for sure. That'll go right out the window when this gets doctored up. But cut 6 inches off, whatever the elastic edge is, refold it, rehem it, and it would just turn into another tarp. Honestly.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm sorry, I have to run.
Nope, that's quite all right, Steve. We knew you had to go. Thank you for joining us, sir. And we had an amazing weekend. Also, I have your hydration bag sitting right here on my desk. Shoot me a message. Let me know when I can meet up with you. I will drive it over to you.
Fantastic. Love it. Listen, guys, I had a great time last weekend. For all those listening, if you ever have a chance to camp with these guys, don't hesitate. They're a lot of fun. They're full of knowledge. You'll learn something, and you'll have a great time.
Might not necessarily be what you wanted to learn, but you will learn something.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
Well, thanks, Steve.
It'll be soon, Steve. See you then.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye now. So yeah, Steve was with us through the whole weekend. Like I said, he came on a little earlier. So once again, thanks for Steve for coming out and joining us. And not to sell the man short, he's a wealth of knowledge too. A little newer to the bushcrafting field than Ben and I, but I mean, he has accumulated a ton of knowledge. And just some of the chats we had, I was thoroughly impressed with some of the stuff that he was telling us about.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, he's really embraced it and learned a bit, and he was showing a few knots and stuff, and you know, it's obvious that he's not coming from nowhere, for sure. And he's got some interesting gear, I gotta say. So
he has some nice gear.
He does have some nice gear, yeah.
So.
And he gave me a good present the weekend, and we're not going to talk too much about it, but I really am thankful for it, and I'm looking forward to actually testing it out and showing some people that too.
Maybe you can do a future video on that as well once you get the hang of it.
There definitely is going to be one, but in time. I sent you another link too.
I seen that there. That one's a little more pricey, but you know what? That would make a wicked. That thing's almost ready to go as is. I just kind of quickly glanced at it. That thing is literally almost ready to go as it sits.
A 12 by 16 tarp, buddy. That is a big tarp.
That's a very big tarp. But anyway, yeah, we had a lot of fun. We tried some stuff. We had a few stories. We had good food. We never got to talk about the food while Steve was there, but you and your family brought out some chili. That was absolutely amazing. And Ben has mentioned it on the channel before. Ben follows keto. I'm not so much a keto person, and I have to admit, the chili was probably better than a lot of other non-keto chilies I have had. It was hearty. It didn't take near as much to fill me up, and it stuck with me for a long time. I was thoroughly impressed with that.
So we had leftover, so I when I got home, I actually put it in the dehydrator and dehydrated it. So I am actually planning on trying that same stuff on a future trip. So I would say it's about 95% dehydrated now. I have to put it back in for another few hours, and then I'm going to freeze it and take it out in a couple of weeks when I'm going on another trip, because I'm catching up on the lost trips from all summer, one way or the other.
No, I'd be curious to see how that rehydrates. I think it's going to go good because I
so
mean
too.
it just from eating it. If all that came out was the moisture, I mean, once you reheat that, I think that's going to be a delicious meal.
Yeah. I've done spaghetti sauces. I mean, this is very similar to a spaghetti sauce anyways. Just, basically it's a spaghetti sauce with a few extra spices. And they've always rehydrated very well.
Sorry, ignore the
as long
noise.
as long as I keep the fats from going rancid, which that's why I'm going to freeze it very shortly, it's going to be fine. And then rehydrate should be fine. And I think me and everyone who's camping with me will sample it for a meal one day, and it'll be pretty good. And the beauty now, like it's getting colder weather. The beauty right now is trips that you do. You don't have to worry about keeping your food cold. So now you can take steaks and other foods that would normally go bad in the summer, and know that you got a few extra days before it's going to be an issue. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, for sure. I took, we took way more food than we needed for how many people were there. We probably had enough food to stay for another week. Not kidding, folks. Not kidding. Like, there was food galore. I had a cooler full of food. Ben had a ton of food. Steve, I think, had a ton of food. We didn't go poking around his food too much, but, you brought no meal. Did Steve get to try that at all, or did he shy away from it?
I think he tried it last trip I was out with him. So me and Steve have been out a couple of times now. So I think he did try it. He did like it. I know Chris has tried it when he's gone with me before. You've tried it before. It's generally gone quite well.
It's a little harder to set up than oatmeal, but it's way better than oatmeal.
Yeah. I find it very comparable for everything. Like once you mix it, it's just pour hot water on it. It's good.
What else did we do for food over the course of the weekend? There's, of course, the classic wiener roasts, and you guys roasted some sausage.
You had your egg pops.
Yep, the egg poppers. They were pretty good. And if anybody's wondering what an egg popper is, literally take a muffin tin, take shaved ham. No, not the, ham slices that you would go buy from Walmart, not the square ones. This was actually, what was it? I think it was Black Forest ham. Yeah, I think it was Black Forest ham that was shaved down. And you just set that in your muffin tin. Throw some cheese in it is what I did. Cracked an egg on it, threw it in the oven for... There was some experimenting here, but I think I ended up with 15 minutes at 350 degrees. And then I just kind of pulled the pans out and let them sit on top of the stove until they cooled off and threw them in a dish because I knew we were going to be reheating them anyway. And you brought along a really neat Coleman oven for those things to be reheated, and that thing is wicked.
Yeah. The hardest thing, and it's only because the weather was pretty windy, is keeping the Coleman stove lit. Because once we got it lit and we got the thing put on top of it, it worked perfectly fine and it was great. Yeah, that is a neat piece of equipment, and it's just basically a steel box. You light a fire under it with a Coleman stove, an alcohol stove, whatever you put, and it heats up. And we reheated those egg poppers, and they work great. In fact, the last couple were kind of getting a little overcooked because of it, but
that was kind of nice in its own. I liked that extra little bit of crispiness. Now, the last one I ate, it was definitely overcooked. It got too much. Yeah. But somewhere in the middle there, the real soft ones, if you want to call them that, they were good. But the slightly crispy edges, man, it almost was like a slight hint of bacon-ish taste to it, because ham and bacon, they're fairly similar. And it was delicious. I think those would be great with bacon. So lay your bacon in the muffin tin and do everything the same and do it that way. I think that'd be really good.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've had something similar to that. It is pretty good.
But yeah, that was kind of our weekend. I mean, I don't think we missed much, except the The area itself is nice. I'm still not going to drop the location. I don't want the location getting out there because it is, well, you know what? It's kind of our spot. You know what I mean? Not that it's our spot, like we own it. Just the people that know about it, and those who don't, hopefully somebody takes you there at some point. I don't really want to put it out over these mediums. If anybody's really interested, like, shoot us a message. I don't mind, if you're in the area, I'll tell you where it is. But just saying it here, there's always that potential that you may get these, like, the wrong people hear it, and you get these great big waves of people floating in that just really ruin a good thing. I've seen it happen in the past, and it's very unfortunate. I don't think anybody, like our regular viewers, I have no worry about that. Don't get me wrong. It's the one-off. Somebody's like, oh, hey, I heard this on a Bushcraft podcast. Somebody goes and tells their friend. They listen to it. They're like, oh, we're going to go there and take all our buddies, and we're going to destroy the place. Because it is a community-upheld area. It was government once upon a time, and then it became a community-upheld area. And just in respect to that, I don't think it's worth dropping the location. We will say that it was towards the Sheet Harbor area, and it had a beautiful lake on it.
Yeah.
And you guys, like you said, you got out in the boats, you did some touring in the canoes, and potentially we may be able to camp on that island you guys were checking out. Was that the kind of the lowdown on that?
Well, yeah, I always look at any lake I get onto. I look at islands and stuff, and yeah, there's quite a few spots in that overall area. If you look at the Eastern Shore area north, there's a few big lakes and there's a bunch of islands and stuff, and those would all potentially be good spots to visit. I ran into a friend after I left there. We'd met him when we first got there. He was there, and then I went to his place, and he gave me a few hints of places we can check out in the area too. So there is more to come to us exploring that area.
100% I'm camping on the island. Steve, actually, there is, if you're still listening to us, I didn't know if you're still listening or not, there is a camp not far from there. Ben would have passed, actually you and I passed it on the way home, Steve. And I was going to try and beep and get your attention to show you where it was, but I kind of drifted off into my happy place while I was driving and forgot about it until we were long past. But there's a camp just down the road, maybe 5 minutes from where we were camping. Not the one that you can visibly see from the road. Not that one. That one's full of bats and a whole bunch of other nasty stuff. You don't really want to go inside there without the proper breathing apparatus because it could land you on your butt. But off on the other side into the woods a bit, there is a camp in there. And I think come cooler seasons, maybe before the snow gets too deep, but even the snow gets deep just means we got a snowshoe in. We will go in and investigate this camp and maybe pull off an overnighter. Because, it's a camp with beds. It's got a stove. I think we'd be rather comfortable if we want to make a night of it.
I'm interested. I'm in. Just tell me time, place.
We'll figure it out. And Steve, that invitation extends to you as well, my good sir. You were good enough to join us on this trip. It's only fitting that you should join us on another one in a similar area. Because the beauty of this one is it's right on a river. And the river runs to an old fish hatchery. The fish hatchery has long been closed and all that good stuff. But it's an excellent river. It's not super deep. Great for fly fishing. Probably not so good in the winter, I would assume. But for future visits, if you were to go in with your family or something, Ben, I think you'd have a good time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah. So was there anything we kind of missed from the weekend? I'm trying to think if there's any side stories or adventures that I should include, and I can't remember any.
No, I think we hit the main points for sure. There's always some secrets that you can't give away everything, because then why would people show up? They just
and that's true.
We don't have a planned next trip as a group. But, if anyone is interested in camping with us, reach out. Let us know where you are and where you're willing to go. And if there's anything we can work out, we will consider it for sure.
Have tents, we'll travel. Maybe won't be a planned group camping adventure, but if there's a couple of us that can get together, why not, right?
Yeah, for sure. I know I got another trip planned in about 2 weeks, and I'm pretty excited about that. And me and you are definitely, before the winter's out, getting out a few times.
Hope so, yes. That's the plan. Steve actually says he's headed back to that location this weekend, which he had mentioned while we were there. And he's going to have a little outing with his spouse there. So that'll be good. They'll get to hang out there. Hopefully they have great weather. We left you a little bit of firewood, maybe a little wet now. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a real good time out there. Definitely send us some photos. We won't put them up on the page unless you want us to, but we'd love to see how you guys make out on that. Especially if you're going to go over and check out that island. He did mention that he's going to check that island out, so.
Yeah. And, there's only maybe another month worth of decent canoeing weather left.
Yeah.
Depending on how brave you are, maybe a bit more. So get out there and enjoy yourself with that, for sure.
Yep. And like I said, I think that's kind of little quick for us tonight. Only a 50-minute podcast, but I think that's all we can really say about that without letting too many secrets fly and beating a dead horse. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So with that, I think I will bid everybody adieu and a good night. Any closing statements you got there, Ben?
No, not really. Like I said, like we always say, get out there, have fun, enjoy yourself. Let us know how things go. Be safe. That kind of stuff. Test your gear before you go. Robert probably would have had a better night's sleep had he tested that gear before we went.
You know what? It was a good plan. It was a sound plan. It was just a very quickly thought out plan. So,
to be honest, I've never set that tarp up or that underquilt up myself. It's different than my other sets, and I just didn't have a plan for it, honestly. And we thought that was going to work. I'm really surprised it worked so poorly.
Well, live and learn. I didn't freeze, and it was a good story out of it. Actually, that knot that Steve showed us, the press it on a bite where you could tighten and loosen. I think that would have worked really good in that instance to tie it right to the whoopee sling.
Yeah, I was thinking of something similar. Maybe a carabiner so you can hook it on and off quickly.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, there will be future plans, and that will not happen again, trust me, because it was an oversight.
More testing to come. Things will get better.
Night, everybody.